those of you who have followed the project through its twists and turns, you will know that we are building a railway now from London to Birmingham. And this map, although it's a little bit of an old graphic, it is still a really useful one. And if we were to add our sites that we've excavated in addition to all the ones we knew about at the beginning, it would look really, really dense. It would be a much more contracted map. But my brief for today was to talk about archaeology. And so because we're in the West Midlands, I'm going to talk about a site that's only about 8 miles southeast of here, and then a couple of sites that are literally outside the door. So you're just going to get pictures. I'm going to try and remember all the dates. Those of you who are in the audience who'd excavated these sites, I hope to give you a name check, and please don't heckle me when I get all the dates wrong, and thank you for giving me all your slides. So we are going to start with Coleshill, like I said, about 8 or 9 miles southeast of here, and it is a medieval park, deer park, and in the bottom of this slide you can see the sort of, it almost looks like a little semicircle of a moated site and a structure. So a big medieval landscape. And as is traditional, as you all know, we start by doing huge amounts of non-intrusive survey to identify the site. And I should say that we've been in the field for nearly 10 years now, doing evaluation and excavation. We're not quite finished yet. We are substantively complete. Still a few little archaeological sites left to be excavated and some historic building work to be undertaken. So Coleshill, one of our earliest ones, and those of you familiar with the Historic Environment Research and Delivery Strategy will notice that it's actually on the front cover. So some really nice images from early on. So we knew that we had a really, really interesting site. And what we discovered was an octagonal moated site that had a predecessor, which was square. And it was modified substantially in the late 16th century when Sir Robert Digby married a very rich Irish heiress, Lettice Fitzgerald, top name, and then proceeded to spend basically all of her money on some gardens. He had inherited the site from de Montfort, who was executed for treason, so there was quite a family feud going on this site. And he set around this massive program of expansion, which included gardens, pavilions, planting beds, but we didn't know about the garden at all. It doesn't appear in any visitor records or letters, doesn't appear in any other material, so completely unknown. And from end to end, it was about 300 meters. And it parallels Kenilworth Castle Gardens and Hampton Court Palace Gardens as well. So it's going to really change our understanding of early gardens and how they expanded and what they looked like. So I'm really excited about the post-excavation works that will begin to actually put some colour and literally some flowers and some plantings into the story and the information that Wessex Archaeology excavated on this site. But it was also a defensive site, and we had 2 octagonal gatehouses. Again, we only had passing reference to the gatehouses. We think they were built in the 13th and 14th century, demolished in about 1650, and really substantial structures would have guarded the moat, obviously defensive, but reflecting the status of the people who owned the manor. But beyond it being really substantial, and we didn't expect the level of survival, we particularly were excited to find these pockmarked walls of the ashlar blocks of the gatehouse. And this is probably an early skirmish in the Civil War. Officially, the Civil War, I've now researched, started in 1642 by the Battle of Curdworth, which is actually just up the road from here. And so it's possible that on the way to that battle, there was some sort of early interaction, but of course it's not recorded. And because Sir Robert Digby was a staunch royalist, then perhaps the parliamentarians going past thought they would take a pot shot. What this has also allowed us to do is do a huge amount of great engagement with the local community. So we've had site visits, Wessex did some really great graphics, virtual reality tours, and then of course opportunities to talk to the archaeologists. And that's been one thing that I'm particularly proud of on HS2, that all of our supply chain, all of our contractors have really embraced the community engagement aspects within the challenges that a commercial project and the site works brings. And this is a particularly lovely example. So I know you archaeologists, but just in case anybody is worried, there'll be a few pictures of skeletons soon. And I'm going to take you back into central Birmingham, into Park Street Gardens, which you can't really appreciate now because there's lots of construction work outside. It's between us and Moore Street Station, those of you that came into Moore Street. And this image, published in the late 1898, just gives you an impression of what Birmingham would have looked like and how dense it became with its chimneys and its churches and everybody packed in together at a time when I appreciate you all understand the Industrial Revolution, a time of great change. And Park Street Gardens was actually an overspill cemetery for St. Martin's in the Bullring. So we were able to build on the really great work done in the 2001 and the excavations there, where they excavated just over 500 skeletons in their work. Park Street Gardens revealed some 6,500 human remains. So we've been able to expand our knowledge and understanding of this time of great change. And of course, at the London end at St. James's Gardens near Euston, we have a comparable and dense cemetery as well. So we'll be able, during post-ex, to do a lot of comparing and contrasting as to who the people were, what they died of, and everything else that the osteologists will give us. And obviously, we knew there was a tremendous amount of potential from the early work that was undertaken. This work was undertaken by Mola Headland Infrastructure, and it was a cemetery of two halves. The northern area, mainly earth-cut graves. The southern area, a preponderance of slightly more spaced graves and brick-vaulted tombs. So it took about a year, about 70 archaeologists. You'll realise that we have a tent over it as well. That's a part of our undertaking with the Archbishop's Council of the Church of England, obviously affording due dignity, care and respect for all the human remains that we excavated and shielding them from view. Also the added advantage of keeping the rain out of the excavations. And I particularly like this graphic because, again, we're all used to seeing excavation sites, but the beauty of talented artists being able to recreate what it might have looked like when it was in operation, I think really helps to bring it alive. And this is just an example of a brick vaulted tomb from the southern section. So we have found about 35 of these. And again, nameplates as well. That'll give us that extra level of ability to research perhaps that named individual if any other records survive, and then pair up who was in the grave with actually the nameplate. Is it correct? And I've just picked a couple of slides to show the impact of the industry that people had. So here you've got the picture of button making and some metal, a metal button in its early form. And then the impact that repetitive work would have had on the bones of the workers. So really intensive, repetitive actions. And obviously Birmingham, button making centre, gun making factory, jewellery, really a hot spot for urban development and as the powerhouse of the industrial revolution, get the right one. And I particularly like these two slides, pictures. One, the perils of smoking a clay pipe. I mean, that's a lot of effort to go into wearing your teeth down by smoking a clay pipe. And then also the fact that we've all been vanity about our teeth has been ongoing for quite some time. Next time you go to the dentist and you want an implant or some false teeth, maybe you can take this out as an example. But perhaps the most interesting element was the impact of post-mortem modification, which it's not a phrase that I tend to use every day, but there was a medical school nearby. We found lots of examples where human remains, the arm bones or the leg bones weren't the right size or shape for the rest of the human. In this particular example, you can see there's an extra skull and a brick instead of where the brain would have been. We also found examples of a wine glass being put in a skull and I believe a marmalade jar. Empty, I gather. And this is believed to be Mr. William Sands Cox, who ran the medical school nearby. And so this is probably the result of his work. And there was a preponderance of this in the northern cemetery, which seemed to be the poorer end of the burial ground, as opposed to the southern area where the wealthier people were buried. So again, you can make of that what you will. So lots more excavation and investigation and research to be done during our post-excavation program. And bringing us again nearby to Curzon Street. Those of you that came into New Street will have seen Curzon Street, old Curzon Street station being wrapped around by our construction works. And Old Curzon Street station is the terminus structure, first railway ever built, terminus railway, 112 miles down to London, where it had the Euston Arch at the other end, now demolished. And I've just chosen this moody picture of it. It's a little bit old and out of date now, to show you what it is now, but would have been a monumental structure. Quite short-lived. It was a London and Birmingham Railway, then it merged with the Grand Junction Railway to become the London and North Western Railway. So lots of railway history for those of you who are railway nerds. Obviously, you work on high speed too, you quite quickly become one. And again, just to give you some perspective as to where we are, we have Old Curzon Street Station, and then the Roundhouse, which I'm actually going to concentrate on now. I should say that Old Curzon Street Station is owned by Birmingham City Council, and HS2 are working with them to bring it back into a more long-term use. It's slightly outside our construction red line, as it were, but obviously part of our urban design ideas. So moving on to the Roundhouse, which is on the right of this slide. This is my favourite ever map, because it's basically the Millennium Falcon. And fun fact, it was only when we excavated the Roundhouse itself, next slide, only 40 mil out from the drawing that Robert Stevenson made. So as an as-built, that's pretty accurate for the time. And this is what it looks like now, or it did look like in full excavation. Again, a very well-used graphic in all of our promotional material. So we believe it's the earliest roundhouse. There's one obviously in Derby. I think this predates it by a couple of years. Sorry, Adam, if you're in the building. And also those of you familiar with Camden, the Camden Roundhouse was one of these as well. And it would have stabled 36 locomotives and tenders, or 32 locomotives. And basically, as maybe some of you know, trains drive in, go on the turntable, and then get sent back down the line or into the stables. And I love the terminology of stables, still in the horse-drawn era, making that adjustment to modernity. And there they would have had inspection pits to service the locomotives. And that opened in 1837, for those of you writing down dates. And again, just another graphic produced by Visualising Heritage of Bradford University, just again showing the recording work that was undertaken. And this was undertaken by Headland Archaeology. And again, a 3D model undertaken by Visualising Heritage, which proved really, really useful for conversations about preservation in situ with Historic England and Birmingham City Council, and also has been really helpful to get out into the community and talk to a whole range of stakeholders about what it looked like. The site is now substantively preserved in situ underneath the flat area of land that you saw as you came in on the train. Only a small amount of it was lost to the viaduct. And on the left-hand side, you can see the boiler room. And another really great graphic that I like is the coke vault tunnel. Now, it wasn't possible to put archaeologists into this tunnel, health and safety, always at the forefront of our mind. But the really, really clever people at Visualising Heritage were able to put scanners down. And I think it's a really, really evocative set of images, the sort of dot matrix, because I think it gives you a really great impression of how the canal delivered coal, and then it was taken through these tunnels to the boiler house to actually service the roundhouse. And this is just the last little section. For those of you who haven't already been aware, our digital legacy is being curated by the Archaeology Data Service. That is well underway for all the fieldwork material. That is substantively complete. That process will obviously continue during post-excavation works. So it's a really, really great resource for anybody who wants to investigate the work that we've already completed. We give updates to historic environment records on a 6-monthly basis, so hopefully that supports their planning decisions and local engagement. So if you haven't already checked that out, please have a look at that resource. It's really helpful. And just to tell you where we are now, in autumn last year, we awarded the contract for post-excavation services to Access Plus. My next slide has all their names on. It's a consortium led by Headland Archaeology, and we have just completed the first 6 months, completed the mobilisation phase, and we're now into the development of the project design. So it's essentially a design and build scope. We've given them all in the information, said, knock yourselves out, tell the story of HS2, give us a really great product. So we're really excited about what that contract will deliver. And, oh, that has come out blank. So that's not very exciting. Oh, and that one. Oh, hang on. I didn't know that had fancy graphics on. So this is the Access Plus team. Like I said, led by Headland Archaeology, but many, many organisations and individuals here who are reflected in that, and we're really excited to be working with them. And that, from an HS2 perspective, that team is led by my colleague Mike Court. Dr. John Halstead is in the room as well, who is the academic lead for us, and I am just sitting back and watching them all get on with it. It's great.